Gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Alaska, Mr. Begich, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you to our witnesses for being here today as we examine the critical need for permitting reform under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. NEPA was intended to ensure thoughtful environmental reviews, but over decades it has morphed into a bureaucratic quagmire that stalls vital infrastructure projects, inflates costs, and undermines American energy independence and economic growth. A prime example is the 10-mile Cooper Landing bypass on Alaska's Sterling Highway, a project first conceived in the 1970s to improve safety on a beautiful but winding road that sees heavy tourist and commercial traffic. What should have been a straightforward upgrade has been mired in NEPA reviews for nearly 40 years, with endless environmental impact statements, public comment rounds, and land negotiations dragging on until the final EIS in 2018. Today in 2025, construction is finally underway, but the project won't finish until 2032, over half a century after initial planning. Costs have skyrocketed to over $1 billion for this 10-mile road, at least one order of magnitude greater than original estimates, all while Alaskans endure ongoing congestion, accidents, and economic losses. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated case. Across the nation, NEPA delays hobble energy production, transportation upgrades, and resource development weaponized by special interests to block progress. Republicans support responsible stewardship of our natural resources, but we must cut the red tape that turns years into decades. Reforms will streamline processes, reduce frivolous litigation, and get America building again without sacrificing environmental protections. My question, Mr. Mergen, in your written testimony, you state that NEPA does not warrant amendment, but colleagues in this committee on both sides of the aisle today seem to disagree. Is it your opinion that these folks are wrong and you're correct?
No. I think that I would clarify my written testimony to say that I think that this committee should be cautious about what steps it undertakes. And what I was really trying to get at is that there have been dramatic changes in the landscape within the last 2 years. And I think that so much of what we talk about in NEPA is sort of, and I would agree with some of my colleagues here, hyperbolic, right? That we need to take a considered look at this sort of thing. So to give you an example, I would certainly favor efforts to utilize technology in a way that can streamline NEPA processes. I think there are good examples, and the IPAC example that Mr. Huffman mentioned is a really good tool. So I want to be clear that I think there are steps that we can take. My overall point is that I think the landscape has dramatically changed, and that's the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and that is the 7-county decision, which I think is a very, very significant development. And I think that a lot of the downstream and upstream cases that we've been talking about before 2025 fall away in light of 7-county.
Let me ask you this as a follow-up. Also in your written testimony, you mentioned that NEPA is often improperly blamed for project delays. But we've heard from other witnesses today and regularly from folks in our districts that NEPA burdens and anticipated lawsuits are significantly delaying their projects and projects across the nation. Is it your opinion that all these businesses are incorrect?
I think that I would agree with Mr. Hergott on something that he said earlier strongly, that what we need is more data, more information about EISs, more information about EAs, and more information about CEs, so that we have like a solid empirical look at sort of what the impacts have been down the line. Because I do think that when you peel away the layers on a lot of these litigation, it's not about NEPA. It could be about the Clean Water Act. You see that a lot in Alaska on some mining cases that you're probably very familiar with. And so NEPA gets the blame, and it's another environmental statute is the handicap. Now you may say that just indicates that the environmental laws have gone too far. But what I would say is that when you blame NEPA unnecessarily, you lose out on the fact that it is purely procedural. It's not there to stop projects. It's there to inform the decision maker and the public. And I think we can all agree that that is a good, right?
I think that is a good thing. I think that we need to make sure that we limit the envelope for lawsuits to weaponize NEPA against the American people. We need to make sure that we continue to evaluate and reform this legislation. And it's encouraging to hear your testimony, the testimony from other witnesses and colleagues from both sides of the aisle calling for NEPA reform. And with that, I yield back.